the next thing I know is I've jumped off this freeway, and we're on basically the set of Jurassic Park. It's a
Welcome to Huntin' Stories, brought to you by Late to the Game Outdoors. Everyone loves a good story, and hunters have some of the best. Our whole mission is to collect and share great stories from hunters just like you, to entertain and keep you motivated all year long. So, pull up a seat around the campfire, because here we go. Today on the podcast, I welcome my brother-in-law, Zach Fleming. Zach is a great dude, and I'm not just obligated to say that because we're related, but he is one of my go-to hunting partners. We hunt together at least a couple times a year, and he's a contributor to the whole Late to the Game Outdoors thing. Even though he himself is not late to the game, he's been doing this his whole life, and I learn a lot from him every time we're out. All that to say, Zach is on today because he has one of the most insane hunting stories I've ever heard of. He texted me a bunch of pics and called me immediately after this story happened, and the first thought in my mind was I have got to get him on a call and record this podcast because this story is just nuts. So, with that huge setup in place, let's hear from Zach. Hey, what's up, Zach? How's it going?
Excellent, brother. How are you?
Oh, just living the dream of coronavirus. It's terrific.
Yes. Introverts are celebrating in the isolation of the world right now, myself included.
Yeah, I usually try to avoid the office and get a lot more work done away from the office. So I've been hyper productive the last month.
Yes. People are finding out that those hour-long meetings can actually just be emails.
Yeah, we're forced to. I think when all this is said and done and we get back to normal, it's going to be a lot more efficient around the workplace.
Yes. Mainly because people are just never going to go back to work. They're going to figure out, like, I've lived a month without working. I'm just not going back.
They've tasted how sweet it can be.
Yes.
Well, hey, you're on for a number of reasons. I mean, we hunt together all the time, and I'm sure we'll have plenty of other stories to chat through and share over the course of this podcast. But you have just one of the craziest hunting stories I've ever heard of.
I do.
It's just when you texted me a couple weeks ago and then like followed up with a call, and I was flabbergasted. That's the only word. Like, I've never heard of anything like this. So to set up with that like huge tee up there, you live a very difficult life in that your in-laws live in Hawaii. So
I do. I'm forced to make travel arrangements to go visit them in Hawaii.
Oh man.
To go see grandma and grandpa and grandma. I have to go see and take my kids to the island of Oahu, and it's been really difficult. I've had to force myself to make those journeys. It's not like they live in Branson. They live. For any of our Branson listeners, but yeah, visiting them in Hawaii has been a really difficult thing, and we were there just before all the craziness of quarantine, like literally while this kind of madness was happening. And basically the story started off with a easy trip to the grocery store. We were headed back from the grocery store before all the, there was actually toilet paper on the shelves. And my brother-in-law had told me about some of his neighbors that were some local Hawaiians that sold wild boar meat, just kind of like had a sign, and they would throw out some local boar on the barbecue and smoke it up, and they would sell it to their neighbors, and they would have kind of a little family get together. And we're driving home, and a house that wasn't normally the one he had seen these barbecues happening at, literally a neon sign that was handwritten that said "wild boar meat for sale," like a garage sale was happening.
Yes.
With an arrow, and it was down this little street, this neighborhood in the city of Kailua, and town of Kailua, not a city. But we rolled in there. We bought a couple of pounds of wild boar meat and started talking to the guy who was having this little shindig. And it was literally like a street party. I mean, there was probably 25 people just hanging out, having some beers, drinking, and eating some wild boar meat. And kids are playing in the street, and music's blasting. And I met this guy, and started talking to him about, hey, how did you get this wild boar meat that you were selling? Because he had literally probably 40 or 50 bags, like gallon Ziploc bags of it. And I'm going, how in the
Wow.
world did you get all this? And the story, and he was smoking. He had a portable metal roof, corrugated roofing with wheels on it, smoker in his front yard. And he starts telling me that basically he's got these wild boar that live out in the jungles, and he's got dogs. And he kind of just threw it out there. He's like, well, if you ever want to go, let me know, and I'll take you guys out there. And it didn't take me as a hunter of like, wait a second, I'm going to just get to go kill a wild boar in the jungles of Hawaii. I'm like, when are you going? Because I was only going to be there at that time for a couple more days. And he said, well, I'm leaving tomorrow at 5 a.m. And he goes, if you want to come, bring a pair of, bring some pants and a long sleeve t-shirt and whatever snacks and water you want to take. Well, I was on a vacation in Hawaii, so my hunting gear was not, let's just say I had a pair of tennis shoes, and I borrowed a pair of work pants from my father-in-law, as well as, thankfully, I brought a junk pair of tennis shoes, and we were going to maybe do some fishing, so I did have a long sleeve, like Under Armour fishing t-shirt. And so that was the extent of my hunting gear. And I showed up. First of all, I made sure that he wasn't like a mass murderer and he wasn't going to just take me out in the woods. So I did actually see his dogs. He had a beautiful setup. His pins were in the back of his house, and these dogs were really well taken care of. He was feeding them actually some of the boar meat that he was selling.
Naturally.
He mixed some of that up with some Hawaiian sweet rolls, and that's what his dogs are eating: is wild smoked boar meat and Hawaiian sweet rolls.
That is, so, if I was writing a cartoon about a Hawaiian pig hunter, I would comically have that be what he's feeding his dogs, and I love that it really exists.
Yes, so there is a person in Hawaii that actually eats or feeds his dogs Hawaiian sweet rolls and boar meat. But the next day, my brother-in-law and myself showed up at his house, and because he was partying, he was 5 a.m. There was no lights on at his house, and I thought we had been duped. I thought we had been duped by Hawaiian, like playing a horrible trick on us to get up at 5 a.m. Because there was zero lights. His house was completely dark, but I think he had a little too many beverages the night before, and so we called him, and he like pops out of his back door of his house and starts getting his dogs ready. And it's, he's wearing he literally walked out of his backyard in his underwear and a pair of boots and started watering his dogs. And speaking in his pidgin, he's yelling at his dogs. At this point, his brother-in-law had showed up, and his brother had showed up. They were the other guys that were going to show up that were and I'm going to be honest, all I had on me to protect me was a box cutter knife, like a 4-inch blade knife that I had brought with me in my checked luggage. And so when the other guys showed up, there was definitely that, like, are these guys going to take me in the middle of the woods, and it's going to be some kind of like game where like I have to outrun these dogs, and somehow I'm the wild boar that they're going to go ahead and train these dogs on.
This is what they do for fun.
Yes, they take unsuspecting mainlanders and take them into the jungles, never to be seen again. But oddly enough, we got these dogs ready. He got them all collared up. He had his GPS and his he had these little, like, very large, wide neck covers for them when they would attack the pigs, so they didn't get cut up too bad. And got these dogs in his truck, and his girlfriend was kind enough to drop us off. And I didn't quite understand how the hunt was going to work, other than to show up to my house at 5 a.m. and we're going to go kill a pig, is to the extent of what I knew was going on. So his girlfriend drives us out at 5 a.m, and we're on the H3 highway. And if you can imagine an elevated freeway, like most states have, and he's telling his girlfriend as we're driving, it's pouring down rain, it's pitch black, and he just tells her to stop on the side of this freeway. And I'm like, okay, so I hop out of the truck. We're on this main highway that runs through the center of Oahu, and we literally jump over a fence, and we're like throwing dogs off the freeway, and he's catching his dogs, and he's trying to get this done pretty quickly so his girlfriend can continue down the freeway. And the next thing I know is I've jumped off this freeway, and we're on basically the set of Jurassic Park. It's the like vines and overgrown road that was the road they used to build the H3 highway that we're on. And we've got 6 hunting dogs, and we're basically walking down this overgrown Jurassic Park highway underneath the H3 highway into the jungles of Hawaii. So that's kind of how the night, or I should say the morning started. I didn't quite understand what I was getting myself into.
Hey guys, this is Eric from Late to the Game Outdoors and producer of Hunting Stories. And I wanted to thank Bun and Beanster for making this show possible. These guys are the real deal. Whether you're a seasoned business owner or a startup or running a side hustle like I am, they can help you with your branding, logo, easy to manage websites, and fresh creative ideas for your business. They can also help you look the part by helping you design those tricky one-off events. They deliver amazing printed goods, quality apparel, even signage. Truly a one-stop creative shop, and they stand by their work guaranteed. For free consultations and useful resources, go to bunandbeanster.com to check them out, or catch them on Instagram at bunandbeanster. Now back to the show.
At this point, we walked about a half mile back up to where this H3 highway actually goes into the island or in the mountains, and it's a tunnel. And from that point, it was off-roading, and that was my first time I stepped into a puddle. I'm like, oh, I guess my feet are going to be wet. Not knowing that the next probably couple hours was going to be crisscrossing 5 or 6 rivers, was going to be basically holding on to vines for my dear life, and following these hunting dogs into the mountains of Hawaii. And so that was the beginning of our crazy hunt. And at that point, it was just, if you've ever been hunting with dogs, if you're kind of following them, except you're way far behind them. And so he's watching his GPS. The sun comes up, it's pouring down rain, I'm soaking wet. And it was probably a couple hours of just slipping through the mud, of crisscrossing jungle rivers and crossing waterfalls, and not knowing what I was going to get myself into. And about an hour and a half into this hunt, we finally, he sees the dogs on his GPS kind of take off on a line and says, all right, this is going to happen. They're on a pig. And we start crawling up this 60, 70 degree grade, what it felt like. I'm sure it was less than that, but river running through my legs, holding on to vines and rope and tree limbs and roots, and trying to make myself at least, well, especially because I forgot they're actually wearing football cleats, and I'm wearing a pair of like junk Asics that I brought in case I was going to go for a sandy beach walk, but I didn't trash any of my nicer shoes. So I'm slipping, I'm falling, I'm covered in mud, and I try to make my way up into this jungle that we're in. It's basically like a canyon with a river running between my legs, a little creek. And I hear that blood-curdling squeal of a pig being eaten alive.
Yes, that sound that we all know so well.
That sound that you all know, you've all heard it in your nightmares, of this pig being eaten alive, basically. And I make my way up to the top of this ravine, and I'm witnessing these beautiful puppies that I had been petting and were so nice the whole rest of the morning, basically tearing this pig from limb to limb and pinning it to the ground. And this Hawaiian man looks at me and he says, well, do you want to kill this pig? And he hands me like a 16-inch Bowie knife that he had strapped to his thigh on his thigh rig, and hands me this knife and basically says, all right, just poke it right in the heart. And I'm thinking, like, as a hunter,
poke it right in the heart.
Like, I've never been in a situation where, I've shot pigs, I've hunted with my bow, I've hunted with my guns, I've done all that, but I've never stabbed an animal like
to death.
That's never been a part of my normal hunting repertoire, and I'm being asked to basically put this pig out of its misery, and he's pulling the dogs off of it. And so, yeah, shortly later, the pig was dead, and we're pulling the dogs and tying them off so they don't tear it, limb from limb. At this point, they're these ravaging dogs, which were so cute and so nice, and now they're just these massive killers.
Yes, he has trained them that like something about a pig just flips a switch and they
Yeah,
go nuts.
I don't understand it. I've been around like lion dogs before, and I kind of see that a little bit in the same sense with these ones, where these were these beautiful, cute little puppies. They're not even big dogs, but 6 of them would have taken a grown man down with no problem, based on what I saw them doing to this pig. And so yeah, by this point, all of the party that we were with, all the guys had made their way up to this pig, and he takes another like skinning knife out and starts skinning this thing off and throwing the scraps to the dogs for their prize. And I'm just thankful that I'm not the prize. I'm not the animal
Yes.
being skinned at this point. And he pulls out a pillowcase and he basically debones this pig in about 20 minutes and throws a meat into a pillowcase and says, well, I'll be smoking and having another meat party, smoking party here in a little bit, because that's how he basically has these. That's what I saw when I went up to his house and saw this bags of boar meat being smoked. This is what he does on the weekends, is basically goes and kills pigs in the jungle mountains of Hawaii.
So this is like so many thoughts and questions, but so this is, I think you told me, like, because this is like an invasive species, like there's not like tags, get like all the usual stuff, like
No, this is like going out. Yeah, this is like going coyote hunting, and this is like any other people that know about invasive pigs, and you're in certain mid parts of the Midwest and Texas, where these things are, rampaging and going through the wildlife that's native to Hawaii, and damaging it. So the people there, it's really just more get rid of them.
Yeah.
A lot of the islands are a lot worse. These pigs are pretty limited to the island's central part of Oahu, where there's a mountain range that kind of runs through the center part of the island. And yeah, this guy goes out with his dad and his brothers and takes his dogs out on a pretty weekly basis and tries to get as many pigs off the countryside as he can.
Man, and so he's allowed to sell the meat. Like it's sort of like this.
That part I'm not sure is. I'm sure the FDA is not like listening to this podcast. I won't give the guy's name or address out. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can't legally. I think Hawaii is a little bit more laid back in the people there, but yeah, I would say it's not FDA approved. They're not getting there was no stamps on the meat being sold out of his gallon Ziploc bags. But it would be like any of us having a big party and telling our neighbors they can come over and have some, smoked deer or smoked elk or whatever else.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm pretty sure the selling of his meat is probably not FDA approved. I'm sure.
That's fair. I don't want to get the guy in trouble. I'm just so amazed at how all of this unfolded, that like just from the start of, I feel like in your situation, I would have like stopped, like, oh, what a unique thing. Like, okay, we'll buy some meat. And he's like, yeah, we're going out. You should come along tomorrow. I would have been like, yeah, okay, yeah, talk to you later. And would have just like,
I got to be honest with you. My brother-in-law was the one that was actually like fired up about it at first. Like he kind of started the conversation, and he knew I was a hunter. And so he kind of got me involved with the questioning and asking this guy about like what he does and how it works. So if it wasn't for my brother-in-law, I'll give him a shout out. He definitely kind of pushed us to actually get this hunt started. And I'm going to be, as much as I like to say I'm a trusting person, there was a section of time where I'm like, these guys are going to take us out, and they're going to take these dogs and they're going to basically kill us in the jungle. Like that was in the back of my mind for a solid probably 45 minutes before I'm like, no, these guys are cool. Like I could trust them. Because if you've ever like hunted with somebody that's kind of new or you don't know, there's always that like, do they really know what they're doing? Like, are they, are they just gonna like fire off a round in the middle of this hike? And so yeah, me and my 4-inch, blade that I brought in my check-in baggage was not going to protect me from 6 dogs and 3 random grown men in the middle of the Hawaiian jungles. But
No.
yeah, it definitely was in the back of my mind for an extended period of time. And then I was like, oh no, these guys are cool. I can trust them.
That's yeah. You've got scenes from Deliverance playing in the back of
Yeah,
your mind.
it was a Hawaiian Deliverance was definitely being played.
It's ukulele music that you suddenly hear instead of a
Exactly.
banjo.
Exactly going on in the back of my head for sure.
Dude, and then at the end of it all, you stab this pig in the heart with a giant knife.
Yeah, I didn't know that going into this. Like, I didn't know what to expect as far as like how the kill was going to happen. I noticed like they didn't have any guns, they didn't have any bows. They just had a giant Bowie knife on his hip rig. I knew that was like his only means of killing, but I didn't know like, are the dogs going to do it? Are they just we're just going to show up and this pig is been choked out and mangled to death? I had no idea going into this, and he kind of just gave me that look like, hey, do you want to finish this pig off? And kind of this twinkle in his eye, and handed me this knife that I'm sure has been run through hundreds of pigs. Yeah, it didn't take much. I will say the pig did not suffer long, and I felt okay as a hunter, taking the pig out. But it was definitely something unique, something I've never or will. I tell people it was one of those things that was never on my bucket list, but it was added. It was added and checked off in one day.
Yeah.
To go jungle pig hunting in Hawaii with dogs and kill one with a Bowie knife. I added it and checked it really quickly. So.
Man, who would even think to have that on your bucket list? Like, if I think of Hawaii hunting, like my only frame of reference is guys like Remy Warren, who are, I think, on like the main island with a bow hunting these axis deer. Like, it's much more
This is
like what we experience here, just in a different climate.
Just a different climate. This was straight up like I truly felt like I was a part of Jurassic Park, where there was, and the craziest part is, you can, in the background, you can hear the freeway. I mean, you're only maybe a mile or so, or 2 miles into the jungle from the main H3 highway. So that was another weird part of like, I'm in the middle of nowhere, but I'm on an island that you can drive around in less than 2 hours. So yeah, it was a trip for sure, and something that I, like I said, never thought I would do, and probably never will. I might go back there and have to force myself to go back and see my in-laws once once the craziness happens, and hopefully my father-in-law is still working there and I can go see him, and I might have to go to another random house party, neighborhood party, and get some smoked boar meat and see what ends up happening at the end of that day.
Yeah, so that's for any hunters listening who have now had this added to their bucket list. The key is to just find a hand-painted sign selling boar meat, strike up a conversation, and go hunting the next morning.
Yeah, you're going to want to just look for a neon sign like you would a garage sale. That's basically what you're looking for. So,
that's the entire like tag process. You don't need to do any research. You don't
no research. You might want to be better than me and actually bring some level of hunting gear. I will tell you, it won't matter. You will be soaking wet. That is the wettest, the hardest. That was kind of also the insane part about this hunt. It was the hardest hunt as far as like the physical demands of crawling through the jungles. I've hunted in the western part of Oregon and Washington, going, Roosevelt elk hunting, where you're just in the rainforest of the Cascades. I've hunted in the eastern part of Oregon and Washington, where it's much more high desert and big canyons and rivers. I've hunted in Arizona. I've hunted even in Louisiana. I've done some hunting, and this by far is the craziest, hardest, physically demanding hunt. That there's no trail, there's no nothing. You're just going through Jurassic Park. I was waiting for a velociraptor to just poke its head out at any moment, and I was thankful because I kept asking, like, hey, are there snakes? Are there like animals I should be afraid of, like giant spiders? Because I kept thinking that in my head. He's like, no, we don't have snakes here. We don't have venomous spiders are going to kill you. And so there was very little I had to be afraid of, other than the fact that I didn't know if I was going to make it out alive in the first place.
Yes, other than those 3 guys and the dogs, there's nothing to be afraid of.
Nothing to be afraid of at all.
Oh, wow. Dude, there is that is just an insane story that I can't believe exists, and I'm so glad it exists in the world. And thank you for getting you're part of this whole late to the game thing, and you have now put us on the map outside of Arizona. Like we have there's now been a late to the game kill out of Arizona.
Yes, our first off the mainland hunt. Might be the only one. I don't know. It just depends. We might never make it back out that way. But no, it was like I said, it was an absolute blast. And that was, if you know anything about Hawaiian, just the people there are super nice and super laid back. And he was thanking me for at the end of this. We got all the way home. He couldn't get any of his friends because I think they had partied too hard too to come pick us up. So my father-in-law ended up picking us up off the side of the highway. And as we're driving back with his dogs, tied off in the back of my father-in-law's truck, he's like thanking me for coming with him. And I wanted to give him money. I was asking him like, hey man, can I get I'm sure if I paid an outfitter to take us, it would have cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars to go and do this. And yet he's telling me, he's like, no man, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And it was super fun to like meet a really down to earth guy that wanted to just show another hunter a good time and, show them what Hawaiian pig hunting is all about.
Dude, that is there's a lot of, I like to believe a majority of hunters are just good dudes who are happy to help and just happy to share the experience. At least that's who I tend to run into out in the wilderness.
And I told him the invite's open. If he ever wants to come to Arizona, I can show him a slightly different type of pig hunting.
Yes. Oh man, that is, our pigs are, well, they're easier to see, and there's less jungles, but they're just
much less jungles. They also smell way worse than these pigs. These were nice smelling pigs. Our pigs smell like hot garbage. It was a unique taste and a unique smell when he got these pigs.
Yes, they're getting constantly showered, I imagine. So they.
Well, and they eat mangoes and papaya, so a different diet than the Arizona javelina for sure.
Oh man, that makes javelina sound all the less appealing at this point. Dude, well, I gotta let you go, but thank you so much for sharing that story and taking the time to share it with our listeners. And we gotta loop back and I know you've had some way before we really knew each other. When you were living in Oregon, you've got some stories from there that we should tell, and future hunts that we're going to go on together that we should sit down and unpack.
Absolutely.
Dude, awesome. Have a great, it's Easter weekend, so have a great Easter with your family. We would normally see you, but it looks like we will not this year because the world is exploding.
Yep. We'll catch you when the diseases are all away and we're all clean again. And thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks so much for tuning in to Hunting Stories. And if you want to stay up on what we're doing with the podcast or anything else going on with Late to the Game, go ahead and check us out at latetothegameoutdoors.com or give us a follow on Instagram at latetothegameoutdoors. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you guys next time.